Hi, everyone. This is Greg Viti with Real Estate Legends. I'm here with Joe Smazal, and he's got his own podcast, and he's nice enough to come on my podcast. Joe, thank you so much for coming. Excited to have you here. So, Joe, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Iowa.
No
I grew
kidding.
up in a town called Bettendorf, Iowa, which is
Bettendorf.
in the Quad Cities.
Sure.
Right on the border of Iowa and Illinois.
That's a cool. So we have friends in Moline, so I've been there.
That's one of the. Actually, I don't even know which are the official Quad Cities. I should really know that. There's like 5 cities.
Davenport,
Bettendorf on the Iowa side, and then Moline and Rock Island. I think.
Island.
But then East Moline's there. I don't know whether that. Anyway.
So that's where you grew up. What were your interests as a child?
I was, sports, being from Iowa and being just an active kid.
So like a football player?
And I was never very good at any sport in particular, to be
honest
with you. It was all just like, I would never hold up a game. I was always
a participant.
Good enough to keep it going and have fun and be active. And like a lot of my buddies were more athletic than me, frankly. So that was just what we did to hang out.
Were you a good student?
I was a fine student, similar to the sports answer. Like, it was like B's.
There you go.
But it was not like, the school, I would do enough, I don't want to say do enough to get by in a lazy way, but I was social, I was active, I was, doing
You're
stuff
living a life.
friends. That's right.
So, how big was like your high school class? Was it?
We had like 500 kids.
Oh, was it?
So by Iowa standards, it was a pretty big school. It was funny. Somebody's like, "Oh, you're from Iowa. You must know so and so." I'm like, "Come on, it's a big state. I don't know." and then they tell me who it is. I'm like,
"I do know.
Fuck, I do know those." Yeah. So,
my wife's from Iowa. She's from a town of like 9,000. Oskaloosa.
I know Oskaloosa. We're probably one connection apart. So, it was a fun upbringing. It was a kind of a simple life as a kid, and I think back and grown up in Iowa very fondly. So
when you're in high school and you're doing some sports and you're getting B's, which normally it's C students that do the best in sales, so I'm very impressed that this B student has done so well. Okay, if you C's, okay, good. And so as you're thinking about college, what was your mindset at that point?
It's funny. I live real close to your office, actually. I live in Chicago, so we're raising our kids in the city here. And I think about even for them, like high school, even is this conversation, they're in elementary school now, and we're already thinking of, I don't want to say we're thinking about it, but like it's in your head.
You plan it. You got to plan it.
For me, in terms of going to college, it was like, all right, University of Iowa was 45 minutes away, if you're driving kind of fast, 45 minutes away from home, less than an hour away from home. It was a big school. I had some friends going there. It was a very social school, fun school. It had sports and everything. So, like, I didn't even apply anywhere else. It wasn't like I had...
So you are a Hawkeye.
Yeah, so I'm a Hawkeye.
I know I liked you. There's a lot of reasons almost. That's great.
So it's University of Iowa. I had an incredible time there. I don't think I learned a freaking thing, except for...
No, you learned all the bars in Iowa City.
I worked at a bar in Iowa.
Which one?
A bar called Vito's.
Okay.
It was a riot, and I met my lifelong best friends from the bar there. We live close still, and it's where.
Well, my wife's a Hawkeye as well, and my younger daughter was going there for a while, and
there you go.
We've been going to Iowa a lot. It's been great.
It was a fun time, man, and I think again it was a great experience. I'm not an overthinker on anything, and that was an example of I'm gonna go to Iowa.
So
my sister was.
What did you study?
Studied marketing and entrepreneurship.
Smart.
Actually, I wasn't that smart, so.
But entrepreneurship's a wonderful thing. I mean, it ended up being very relevant.
It's right. It ended up being very applicable for the profession I picked, and the schoolwork wasn't so intense that it got in the way of my social life there. And so it actually worked out pretty well.
So you're getting ready to graduate.
Yeah.
And how did Chicago lure into...
Chicago, like a lot of Midwesterners, like a lot of Big Ten grads, it just represented this city with so much opportunity. I knew I wanted to live in a big city. I didn't know whether I'd I don't think about life too far down the road. So I knew for some period of time I wanted to live in a big city. in Chicago was the closest big city where it still felt like, you had the Midwestern roots. I remember the first times coming to Chicago as a kid and what that energy felt like, the buzz of the city. And even though I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, I was very ambitious from a business, just like an entrepreneur. I had that bug to do.
Were you getting offers from businesses?
I graduated college in 2009, and it was a shitty time to get a job.
That's
I
a
don't
tough
know whether
one.
I'm supposed to swear on this or not, but rough time to get a job, and so like I was not getting offers. I remember on spring break, me and my buddies went to Vegas, and there were like 10 of us in a hotel room in Vegas. We had, we didn't have a bunch of money, we just piled in. And my buddy cleared his throat I don't know whether it was the morning, but, we're all sleeping, on this chair,
Everywhere.
Wherever you fell, basically. And my buddy stands up on a table and he clears his throat and he's like, I'd like to wake you guys up the way that I've been waking up for the last 3 months. Mark, I regret to inform you that after consideration of your resume, we're not going to extend the job offer.
Rejection.
So, like, none of us were really getting job offers. I mean, I thought that I wanted to do medical sales, and I don't know why. I really don't even remember why. For me, that was a job that I had heard about.
Six
that you
figures.
could kind of, right, you could excel in if you worked hard. And this idea of kind of like selling in a, say, high stakes type environment, put to a high caliber client was appealing to. So I thought I want to do medical sales. I found out very quickly that most of them or all of them wanted a certain amount of sales experience, and they wanted other medical sale experience at that point. So
And you got to go into hospitals.
yeah, so I didn't fully appreciate that on the front end, but I ended up getting a job offer with a small Chicago-based company called Craig Therapeutics, which did specialty hospital beds. So their business was like bariatric beds for like obese patients that come in, right, or like for pressure ulcers and stuff like that. Beds that had all these.
So that was your first job out of
college. But it wasn't even like sales. The job was called account manager. It was not even like it was like a glorified delivery driver.
You're making sure that everybody has the product.
That's right. So the sales rep would go in and they would get an assignment. They'd get basically it was contracts, rental contracts.
Like on contingents.
That's right. So they'd order one when they had a patient that came in that needed it. And so they'd send me in and make sure everybody knew how to use the equipment and, try to kind of like there was some salesmanship for sure, making sure they were happy with,
But this wasn't so exciting to your life. It wasn't like.
Dude, I remember this was, I think I came to Chicago on a Thursday for an interview. I went to for TJ Maxx or something for a suit. I didn't even have a suit. And I met with the CEO. It was a smaller business. Really hit it off. He offered me a job. I'm like, yeah, I'll take it, And he's like, all right, you want to start on Monday? And I was like, yep, I'll be here. And I didn't have an apartment. I didn't know where I was going to be.
But you had a job.
I made $16 an hour, as a college grad. My first job was $16 an hour. And I was so excited. And I had a buddy that right around the same time got a job, and we never toured apartments. We just picked a spot on the map of where it was between our jobs and off to the races.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it was.
So how long did this last?
The job ended up being, it was an incredibly formidable job for my career and my life, frankly. That I was there for 2.5 years.
Really?
And immediately, came in, worked really hard. I didn't really have any other. I didn't have, at the time I wasn't married. I didn't have kids, and I just worked. I also didn't have a lot of money that afforded me the opportunity to do much other than work. On the weekends we'd party or whatever. But
buy a 6-pack.
Yeah, but I was working directly with the CEO. And the CEO was this guy named Craig Poulos, and he was an incredible entrepreneur. He was an inventor. He was a salesman. He was a hardworking guy. And he took to me, appreciated that I was working hard, and immediately he did give me a sales position. And then what happened was we got this, basically got a license, an exclusive license in the United States to sell this hospital bed that not to go too far in the weeds, but stood up. So like it
So
had
you put it in
this
the corner.
no, so like patients like there was all this research about getting patients vertical after surgery. So like rather than you have surgery and you like lay there in bed, you get up and you do your weight bearing, and so like it was he gave me the ability to kind of run with it nationally. So it turned in very quickly. I was traveling all over the country and giving pitches to surgeons basically
Wow.
to say, because they were the ones
Good sales experience.
they were the ones that had the authority, kind of like we're a small business, so like these big hospital systems and stuff, they have contracts and they'd send out RFPs and they'd go through Medline or Stryker or the Hillrom, like these big companies that you see. They would get there, but if a surgeon said, "Hey, I want this technology for our patients," they'd make it happen, or the hospital would make it happen. They were the ones they were the talent bringing it in, and so I was all over the place. We were in Miami all the time, Atlanta all the time. University of Iowa was like one of the biggest accounts that
Oh, you must have loved
in the
that.
business. And yeah, I mean, I stayed at my parents' house for like 2 days a week, and I would be at the hospital for like 14 hours or whatever. Drive home, crash, wake up early the next day because you had to make sure the shifts were like 7 and 7. You had to make sure that you caught them, at the start of their shift, and it was like awesome experience that way. And
Well, I think it gives you a lot of things. The follow up. They
yeah,
have to be there on time.
yeah,
They have to go whether you're sick or not feeling well. You got to show up.
that's
And
true.
you already had the entrepreneurial background. You're
Yeah.
tall, you're handsome. Those things help.
But it was what you said earlier. So like about being in the hospital all the time, like only even doing it for a couple of years, like I didn't. It's not that I minded being in a hospital. I didn't like selling in a hospital. Like you're still a salesperson, and there was and I was looking at the career saying, all right, there's definitely a path to make this job a career. And like and he was giving me a lot of opportunity and everything, and the business was growing. But I was starting to think, this is a point in my life where I actually did think a little further down the road, not to be contradictory, is like, what do I want to do in 5 or 10 years? And I'm like, I don't want to be traveling all over the place. At the time, my wife and I, wife now, girlfriend then, were like starting to think that way. I'm just like, if I'm gonna do something different, it's gonna be easier to do it now than when I have
Oh, God.
mortgage and kids, and
Makes
and
it real
so,
tough then.
that was when I got the kind of real estate.
So what was it that gave you the real estate bug?
Yeah, I'm a pretty simple. Like for me, it always seemed like a low overhead way to start your own business. Is the way I thought.
Inventory things that you don't have to
Yeah, I mean,
house.
like I knew it wasn't. Like, I was pretty self-aware. I'm not smart enough to like think of an invention or like a novel business idea, but I knew that I'd work hard, and it felt like a business that you kind of get out what you put in. And I had some family in Denver that was in the real estate business, so I had like a little bit of exposure to it, I guess, from that.
Were they in commercial?
Yeah, my uncle, yes, my aunt in residential.
Okay.
And I talked to them just as a sounding board. Like it's not like they knew people here really to like get me started. And I didn't want that. I just needed somebody to shoot me straight. And they're like, we think you do well. You have to work hard at it at the beginning. You're kind of overworked and underpaid, but
That's
you
it.
put your time in, and
You got your 6 months reserve?
That's right.
Go for it.
And so I was like, let's go for it. And
And so who'd you sign
I
up
started
with?
with Marcus and Millichap.
You did.
I knew like
You know how many people have been on this show? They're commercial where they started with Marcus and Millichap?
Tony Hardy, I saw. Yeah.
And they're just all they're a great training ground.
It was a
And-
great training ground.
And they do tremendous amount of business
Yeah,
throughout the country.
and it was fortuitous timing. It was 2011, so it was like people who had been in the business for a while had kind of gotten kicked in the shins.
Oh, they're beat
for
up.
a few years, and I had all this fresh energy. I literally didn't. I mean, I had one of those Garmins to get my way around the city. I didn't know the city even at that point. I knew where the hospitals were. It was really like the only kind of anchor points and the bars, I guess. But and I knew less about real estate, but to your point about Marcus and Millichap, is an incredible training ground. And like at the time, the office that I worked in downtown, Greg Moyer had left, but he was still kind of like the godfather.
So was Rockman running?
Steve Rockman and John Fritzbilla. John Fritzbilla was the guy.
So Steve and I went to high school together too.
No, you know everybody, man. So Steve Rockman was one of the guys that I talked to, and I ended up being with a guy named Jamie Clough.
Okay.
Who was my mentor out of the gate.
So you're cold calling, canvassing, and really pounding it, huh?
Yeah, I mean, like we were, they give you a playbook. And the beautiful thing about there was like in the office, there were a dozen or more guys who were a handful of years older than me who did it and were very successful. So like for me, there wasn't that much imagination in it. It's like, look, you follow what they
here's the script.
You do.
This is very
that's right.
process oriented.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we were, it's a little different now at the time, and it was different for the guys before me. But like at the time, you build a database, you go out, you take pictures of the buildings, you take pictures of the management sign of the building, you take a picture of the, the LLC name on the dumpster. And I went all in. I mean, I worked, Kate and I, my wife and I had moved a half a block from where the office was. So, I'd get in early, I'd work hard, I'd go home.
You were used to the 14 hours.
Yeah, and then I'd come back.
So that's the thing. That's about habits. You had the habit already. You knew at 7 a.m. You were ready by 7 a.m.
And they give you these like benchmarks on like activity to hit. They say, hey, if you make this number of calls, if you get this many properties in your database, whatever. And I'm like, all right, well, what if I do more than that? If I outwork, like for me, it wasn't about how much time you spent. It wasn't like, you might take you 6 months to close your first, which it did. But like, to me, I'm like, I can ramp up faster if I just do more.
Well, I always felt like, can I come across with the right inflection where the person on the other side of the phone doesn't feel like it's a canned call?
Yeah.
Because like when I get canned calls, I hate them.
Yeah.
But if someone calls me and they're creative and they're I'll give everybody a little chance.
Oh, totally.
So then you win it over by how you handle the call.
I think that's probably something you're better at than me. I was not doing anything that was different or engaging. It was just more of a
My first thing was never call it a cold call.
Yeah.
This is business development. This is getting relationships where the next time you see them, you know that much more. You feel this much more comfortable. By the fifth, sixth time, you're the pro.
Yeah.
Especially when they see some of the successes you had.
Yeah. It certainly compounds that way, right? Like where it gets easier as you go. At the beginning, the hardest part is like getting that snowball started.
Yeah. I remember driving to see Dave Liniger speak, and he's the gentleman who started Remax, and he kind of changed. He put real estate on its head. Everybody was doing 50-50. That's what you got.
Yeah.
He did 100%, and you had to pay for your stuff. So as I'm driving out to see him, I'm just thinking to myself, God, I pray to God he doesn't tell me to canvas and cold call. I've been doing it for 4 years. Now, I had a lot of success. I was selling about 40 properties a year at that point.
Oh, sure.
But it was brutal. I was working days and night, and I was cold calling and canvassing. And Dave Liniger was like, the last thing I'm going to tell you here today is just cold call and canvas. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Accentuate your life. Do things that turn you on and excite you. If you like music, listen to music. If you like going to concerts, put it in your time. If you like to drink, find the right times to drink and go have a blast. People want to work with people that are excited, that are turned on. If you bring people enthusiasm, you're so much different than the other person. That always seemed kind of natural to me anyway. I always only slept about 4 hours. I always had way more energy than everybody else. So I loved his idea. I was like, that's great.
Yeah.
Now, how can I touch people without having to just call them out of the blue?
Yeah. Well, one of the beauties of the business is you can resonate with different people too. You be yourself, and you'll find people that you click with. I don't think I picked that up at the beginning. I didn't have that type of epiphany or that type of advice from somebody where they're you
were just a bulldog.
I was just trying to.
You were like a mule. You're just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, and what they saw in me, what did resonate was like, when I stopped being worried about being the new guy, and I started to use that as an advantage. So I'd go and I'd say, look, I understand that I don't have the track record of other people that I'm sure you're talking to, but nobody's working as hard as me. And it wasn't just saying that; it was true.
Right.
You know, I'm
You're
like,
you're there in the
look,
battlefield.
I will. This would be the most important thing in my life right now. You know, absent health and family, of course, but like that, I will work harder than anybody will work, and it will translate to the best outcome that the market will bear.
I tell these young people all the time, you tell them, look, I have more time than the other, and they have a lot of stuff on their plate.
Yeah.
I don't, and I'm going to really focus on it.
Yeah,
And I've got those mentors to help me if I have any
yeah,
pitfalls.
totally.
Right? I mean, that's the nice thing about this business is that, like you're at Marcus and Millichap, I know it's a little tough there, but you ask those guys, they'll help you out. Just like Colliers or Kaiser, all those different companies, Interra. So how did you make your transition? What happened there?
From a Marcus and Millichap to Interra.
Yeah.
Nothing really happened. So I was there for 3 years, or just shy of 3 years, and the market had really perked up in that period of time, and I had a little traction, and I was just seeing them hire at a clip that I was like, man, you know, we're hiring kind of a different standard than we were hiring. I felt like when I started, and you know, there was in Chicago, you work in Chicago apartments, so like it's a big market and there's enough to go around, but like I already felt like it was starting to kind of cannibalize. And,
Yeah, if all of a sudden you're working on 25 guys, you're all going for the same people, you're all coming from the
Yeah.
same company.
And like
that is kind of awkward.
when I'd call people, you know, my name is Joe Smazal, I work with Marcus and Millichap, like everybody already kind of had a preconceived notion of who Marcus and Millichap was, good, bad, or indifferent. And I was approached at that time by the guys from Interra who had been around for a few years. They've been in the business, like David and John had been in the business themselves for a while. They worked at Essex and started in Interra a few years prior. And to me, it seemed like it scratched that entrepreneurial bug more than Marcus and Millichap was at that point. And it was this opportunity for it to feel a little bit more fresh when I called people. And so we went for it.
So let me ask you, with the 3 years at Marcus and Millichap, like what was the biggest property? Like how many doors?
The biggest deal that I don't. So the third deal that I sold was a 66 unit portfolio of 3
Hear that?
buildings.
66 units. Third deal.
The first was 9 units, you know, and then there was a 14 unit building, and then there was actually a mixed use building that I worked on with Steve Rockman that you know, if you want a tangent to show that guy's a solid guy, he gave me every opportunity. Like Steve and his family, Shane now is in the business, is like, I think so highly of him. And that was a competitive deal. I was a newer guy and he gave me fair opportunity to get it. We had a good buyer for it. And he kind of held my hand through it too, to be honest.
That's what we need to do.
So
Sometimes that's
Steve
the trick of
you
this
know,
business.
Steve's the man. He's a great dude, and he showed it in that. So it might have been the third or fourth was the 66 unit building, and then shortly thereafter, I did one that was about twice that size, so 135 units, but I don't remember whether it was at Marcus and Millichap.
Wow.
But like, you know,
Isn't that fun though? That seems normal all of a sudden. Oh yeah,
I mean,
you know, 100 units.
But it was, I mean, then, dude, I remember like the 135 unit deal was this guy who was from Arizona and he'd moved down there, and how many times I don't remember, so I don't want to like pull a number out of my ass and pretend like I remember how many times and how long I called him. And not just like boneheaded calls, like incrementally getting close.
Persistence, being nice, being gentle.
Yeah.
Just trying to touch base.
Yeah.
That's one of the tricks of this business.
And he was in town one day. He's like, "Can you come meet me on Saturday?" I'm like, "Of course I can," you know. And he was staying in a hotel out by O'Hare. It was like the Hilton or in Rosemont or whatever. He's like, "All right, yeah, I'll be there. And I was there way early, you know, and I was all stoked. And I got there, and there was I don't know what you call it. Everybody was dressed up like comic book people. Like,
oh, you're kidding?
Like in costume. And
costume party.
It was buzzing. And I was way early, and I'm like, and Jamie came with me, my mentor at the time. And I'm like,
And when you're dressed like a realtor.
I mean, like beyond that, I was in a suit and tie because that was our outfit, the whole like Joseph A. Bank suit for sure, and I'm like, Jamie, I don't, his name was Mike Georgevich. I'm like, I've talked to this guy a lot. I don't think he's like into this stuff, but maybe this was why he came into town.
He comes out of the cake.
We're like, and I call him, when it's getting close to the time, I say, hey, we're by this elevator or whatever. And he's like, that's where I am. And I'm like, what are you wearing? And I'm like, I didn't know what. Yeah. And he's like, like, and I'm like, all right, I can't. And come to find out, shorter version of the story is there's 2 Hiltons in Rosemont or Marriott's or whatever the generic hotel was.
So you're a fool when you're on the wrong block.
One. So then I was like, oh my God, we'll be there. We'll be there in a couple minutes. And we get there and he's in a couch like this, like by the elevator, nobody in the hotel, like basically asleep. And I'm like, look, I'm so sorry. You're not going to believe this. There's like a comic book convention at the other one that I was at. Sorry, we didn't specify, and ended up having a fine meeting and stuff. But
phenomenal.
Yeah,
I love that.
I don't even know what you had started or how that story came.
And so, when you first got to Interra, were you one of the first people there?
No, there were like probably a dozen or 15 people.
And that's probably what you have about now, right?
Yeah, I mean that's really one of the reasons why I've
boutique.
Yeah, because like we haven't just put butts in the chairs. It's been growth. Better, not necessarily more. And so, yeah, we have like 20 or so brokers now.
So now with all the success that you've had, are you actually finding where they're calling you?
Sometimes, but like, yeah, okay, yes.
That's a wonderful thing when they do.
Yes, but that's not.
You still have to earn the business.
That's exactly right.
You got to earn the business.
Like if I'm not active, then the answer would become no pretty quickly.
Right.
Like people use me as an extension of their team, as an extension of their business, and like I've earned that. But you have to continue to earn it every single day.
Because it's the glass, and this is the market, and you take your market share.
Yeah.
And as you take it out, the market finds real quick without us.
Yeah, dude. If I went on a long vacation or something, or if I just took my foot off the gas, like the phone would stop ringing pretty quick.
Yeah. Isn't that funny how that goes?
Funny, and I love it is the truth, but like there's certain days where you're just like, I'm tired, I'm like, I wish I didn't have to have my foot on the gas all day, every day. Wow. But then I kid myself because I like the action, I like
it's
being
very
busy.
addictive.
It's true.
It's very addictive, very exciting. So currently, do you have some listings that are exciting?
Yeah. Kind of the full buckets of the pipeline for me are like, 10 or so deals under contract, 10 or so deals listed, and then 10 or so deals where we're proposing on. Is how
you hear how nice that sounds? 10. I used to always try to have as many possible listings and buyers, and I remember this gentleman in our office, Joe Smazal, would come to me and he goes, "Why do you have so many listings?" I go, "Is that what the trick here?"
Yeah.
And he said, "No, I try to do it like this, Greg. Get a couple listings, sell a couple listings. Get a couple buyers, sell a couple buyers. It's easier in your heart. It's easy." That's nice, Joe, if you can get it like that. But,
yeah,
I wasn't able to do it like that.
Yeah.
But it is nice. Like, I figured out how to sell bigger numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sell bigger buildings.
My average building I sell is probably about $6 or $7 million. And so as an ambitious person, there was a point probably 5 or so years ago where I'm like, I want to start going after bigger deals. And just for, I don't know, ambition or ego or whatever. I don't know, whatever.
I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah, so I had some success doing it. And every year I'll do a couple deals that are more like $30 or $40 million. But I have found that focusing on the middle market and kind of the upper end of the middle market and really doubling down there and staying focused and not trying to chase the shiny object has been more productive for my business, more efficient. And it's where really most of my relationships are.
I try to be a lazy second baseman. I'm not jumping for balls I can't get. I'm not diving for balls I'm going to pull a hamstring. The balls that come right to me, I try to handle them exactly right. So when I'm listening really close to what they want, I'm looking for motivation on the buyer side or the seller side. Once I feel the motivation is there, or a real estate challenge that someone says, this is what I really need. Just like you were saying, I'm going to work harder than when you were saying that, I was thinking about a conversation I had yesterday. And I just know that feeling. It's like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm the full court press is going on once I get that listing agreement signed.
And dude, it translates to your job on the assignment. It translates to the outcome. If you're stoked about it, you're going to work hard. You're going to do everything you can to make sure that the outcome is the best for your client. You know, if for some reason it's like not in the strike zone, you know, with the baseball analogy, or that it's like not exciting to you for whatever reason, or outside your core comp, whatever.
Or it's not priced correctly, or they're putting restriction on you. You can't do anything.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that's not going to work.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, so I am something that's been like a constant goal for me is efficiency and productivity and making sure it's time well spent. That's something I'm always trying to work on.
Well, you know, I started out as just a resident. Well, I shouldn't say just, but I was a residential agent, helping people with their housing needs. And I would look up to all of the commercial guys, and I would be so, wow. And I put them on such a pedestal. And then as I would slowly meet them, I realized, oh, they have the same situations we have in residential. Oh, it's the same kind of thing. And they really, I mean, the best deal is when you cooperate with people. Like, I like when other agents are involved. I'm not saying I don't like to try to get both sides of the commission if I can, but that's not the goal here. The goal is to help the client. But if there's another broker on the other side, it goes better.
Oh, dude, I've learned a lot working with residential brokers, because I feel like overall residential brokers, I think that you like have the processes figured out a little bit better.
We have, it's a dance.
Yeah, and so when I transact, you know, when we're buying or selling a home, I hire a residential broker every single time, you know, to represent me as a buyer, to represent me as a seller, whatever, because it's different enough where I want the expertise. I want somebody with the relationship.
Not only that, you know what? You know how stressful moving is?
Yeah.
It can be more stressful than divorce and death for a lot of people, especially if they've been someplace for 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
It really is overwhelming.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I actually like about the commercial. It's more business.
Yeah.
9 to 5-ish more, or about the numbers.
That's true. And sometimes that works against you because you don't have that additional kind of intrinsic attachment to the, you know, so something goes wrong in the deal, and it's like, oh, it's just, you know, it's just
right.
You know, so
just, I might have another building or not, you know, they don't have that same. I explained that to a client. Well, I was negotiating a contract, and my client doesn't really need the money, doesn't really care. He doesn't even live there that much, but he had no enthusiasm.
Yeah.
So I finally wrote back to him and said, are you going to sign the contract or agree with them, or are you going to wait till they're not excited about your place and go somewhere else?
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things about real estate. It's touchy.
Time
People are excited.
Time kills deals, and more than, you know, it's also just like momentum, you know, and having everybody paddling in the same direction, you know, really can be helpful in getting the deal done. If you have somebody that's 1 foot in, 1 foot out, or just doesn't matter as much to them, you know, anything that comes up can upset the apple cart, you know, and take a deal sideways. So, but that gets back to your point earlier about just like motivation. You don't have to think about motivation in like a desperate way. It can just be like
excited way.
Yeah, right. Like, is this meaningful for either your life or your business or your investment goals, whatever? Like, because if it's not, it's tough.
Well, I tell you what, too, like to buy a 6 flat, if you've just been told to do it, but you're really not that into it, it's quite a daunting experience.
Yeah.
You got to deal with tenants who you get hurt a lot of different ways. And a lot of people don't understand that. Like, the laws are all drawn for the tenant. And it's tough as a housing provider to navigate it all.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like we have good, you know, job security, because none of these owners want to get too deep in with their tenants. They want to stay in the back. They need people like us a lot of times to really facilitate.
Yeah. My wife and I buy like a six flat or two a year is like our kind of long term thing, and build some equity. And the first one we bought was in February of 2020, and
Is that the one you just sold?
no, we kept this one, but this is it's a 4 unit building. It was a half a block from our house, literally on the same street. And I had sold 100 apartment buildings at least before we bought that one, and it's a 4 unit building, right? And even still, it was a daunting thing because part of that, and it's increased since, unfortunately. I'm hoping it gets better rather than worse. Is like the friction between tenants and landlords. I know we're using the word housing providers, which I think is constructive. Shout out to Mike Glasser, right? But it doesn't. It. I wish it didn't have to be like that because of the rules, because of all the regulations. What you said is true. Unfortunately, like, you can't get too close, even if as a human and a good person, and you're trying to do the right thing. You want to.
It's nice to have a little bit of space between.
Oh, dude, it's a 60-page lease or 70-page lease, and my wife and I do it together, and she's a speech therapist by trade, and I'm explaining some of the rules to her, and she's like, that doesn't, why do we? I'm like, I know that it doesn't make sense, but we have to follow all the rules. Not that we were trying to like skirt anything, but some of it's just like you have to let somebody know 120 days before they're into their expiration. Like,
oh yeah, yeah.
Just
no, the new ones, these new regulations so that's just something we were going to pivot to anyway, is the frustration that we're all kind of having, not just with Chicago. I don't want to blame Chicago, but everything is built up where the regulations, like the affordable housing, is 20%. Why don't we have all these cranes all over? It's because of the 20%.
Yeah.
It's also the tariffs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these buildings where they're held up the building because the steel's going to be $4 million extra.
Yeah.
So I'm praying that some of that kind of stuff goes away, but we're begging the mayor, go down to 10%, see the cranes come back. Let's get a welcome mat out. Let's start getting businesses to Chicago.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you said at the beginning. It's not a unique to Chicago thing,
right?
Despite what you'd read in the news, and we're here, and so that's what we pay the most attention to. And but if you want more affordable housing, we need supply, and with regulations and costs and everything as it is, it's really tough to add supply. And without the supply, we're not going to see
Well, I was just thinking about the regulations that you were bringing up, the 120 days and all that. There's a certain area of Chicago where they're giving tenants rights to buy the building, but it doesn't make any sense. Like I just sold a 5 flat in Logan Square. It was $1,430,000. None of these tenants are buying that building.
Well, and if they wanted to, they could.
They could have.
That's what's like wild. Like, right. There is, in real estate, you think about, like, there is an opportunity to kind of there's I don't want to call it like upward possibility, like, but if you're a renter and you want to buy a 3-unit building or a 5-unit building or a 2-unit building or a single family home, or kind of, you can. I mean, that's like
you can with 3.5% down. The seller can pay all your closing costs. But there's all kinds of ways on those. You have to
go to your neighbors and be like, hey, I know that we just rent apartments across the hall from each other, but do you want to get together and you want to get with other tenants and buy this building?
Can you imagine that? Like,
I mean, it's a silly
out of the blue.
It's a silly proposition. It's that's an example, kind of an extreme example of a thing that's popular to get votes that does not translate at all into the objective of the
reality of what we really need.
And it like, we just bought a building in the area, and we had to wait an additional 90 days after we had a fully executed purchase and sale agreement to let that time lapse. In a 12-unit building, only 4 of the tenants even replied. They all said no, but they even replied to the offer. What
makes me mad about it too is it's giving the tenants the right to nominate someone else.
Well, so take even a step back. The beginning of it is, you have to give 60 days advance. I don't know about the smaller building, but I forget the size.
No, you do.
You have to give intent to sell, and so as part of that, you have to give the price. You have to give the operating information about the building, and one of the things that I think is problematic in that is you have to give the rent roll. Okay, so say
I'm paying $1,300, you're paying $1,800.
In every building, we have a situation where we are sympathetic, empathetic, whatever the word is, to a situation where tenants live there for a long time, and we just want to, keep the rent, and whether there's hardship or just trying to be nice people to not like jack up the rent. But if we're gonna ever sell the building, there has to be more parity in the rent roll, because otherwise you're going to create these waves with all the tenants. Because why is that person across the hall paying $250 less a month for me for the same apartment? It can create a weird dynamic, and I don't think that
It wasn't well thought out. Actually, what I found out in putting this under contract, the city never put someone in the place
no,
to handle this. All of a sudden, no one knows where to go. Like,
yeah,
that's ridiculous.
yeah, it is. But
It probably had good intentions, like you said.
I like to think that it didn't, but it's a great example of, like, we found out about that, we being, that our industry and the housing providers, and
Oh, with 1 day notice.
1 day notice, and we had to scramble to educate people, to no avail, because it's too late, about what the like negative consequences will be. And my goal, that it's probably naive of me, is to be a small part in the conversation around housing providers, real estate industry as a whole, brokers, realtors, everybody, that, like, we should have a seat at the table for these things. Not for selfish motivations, not because we're going to say, hey,
we want to get it right.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're a Chicagoan, and you're going to be in this business for a long time, you want what's good for the city. And what's good for the city is diversity, it's affordability, it's vibrancy in the neighborhoods, it's people moving here, it's investment. And without those things, all of those things, you don't have this, like, awesome, like, you don't have what I saw in Chicago when I was moving from Iowa. You don't have all the great things that come with living in a big city. The problem is there's a super toxic relationship between real estate community, housing providers, and landlords especially, and tenants. And a lot of it, I think, was it increased during COVID, because there was this, like, cancel the rent, F the landlord type mentality.
Oh my God.
Like, the politicians, like big politicians, were getting behind. And we were like, look, use our example of a 4-unit building. Like, we were like, that was right before COVID. And every month we were like, are people going to pay? And thank God everybody did, because in a 4-unit building, if one person decides not to pay, it's not that you don't make money. It's that you're feeding the building money every month. And so can't pay the mortgage, can't pay the utilities, can't pay the taxes, can't pay the insurance, can't pay all of our service providers, our maintenance guys, our tradespeople, landscapers, all the expenses. Like, all it would take is one tenant in that building to decide not to pay.
That's what people don't understand too. You just think of when a tenant really goes sour on you and they decide they're not going to pay, and you have to evict them, and it's a 6-8 month deal, and cancer
starts
starts
shit out of the building, and
the whole thing.
And so that to us was a scary time. It was the first building we bought, and like we were just we were holding our breath, like the industry was as a whole. Like, are people going to continue to pay? Thankfully, in the building that we were in, and maybe it had something to do with the way that we ran the building, and hands-on and responsive and communicative and all the, and thankfully people prioritize their rent payment, and
I feel like that does make a difference.
You wouldn't go into the Wall Street Journal or the Tribune or whatever and see, like, hey, fill up your grocery cart and sprint out of Mariano's.
Right.
Like, I mean, housing, like, the thing that pisses me off is housing is like I think
it's the number one thing you should be paying.
It's like a noble thing to provide, especially if you do it the right way, right? Okay, it's like one of the basic necessities of life, and it's a very important thing in a city to have go well, right? It's quality housing, right? And it is frustrating for us in the business, and that's why we've been so defensive the last few years, I think, to be kind of feel like you're under attack when you're trying to do good business, and so
well, it kills me when I see people that own buildings that don't do anything. Yeah. And I'm like, you're not shoveling your walkways, you're hurting all of us. You're making us look bad. Like,
dude, it's an 80-20 thing where like
always
there's
is.
there's 20% of tenants who are bad tenants that that make for all these crazy regulations and things that we have to put guardrails around. And then it's the same though. We have to be honest. I mean, it's the same for housing providers. And
Oh God, yes.
it's like there's 20% who are shitty that are the ones that bad tenants can point to and say, well, that's a bad housing provider. I'm doing what I have to do.
So I feel like you own a building, you answer the phone, you're way up on the ladder because people get pissed off fast when they don't get any action. But I think also you got to train your tenants. I was explaining this last night at one of the Rogers Park Builders things. I was saying, do you tell everybody that righty tighty lefty loosey there's water shutoffs everywhere where there's water? Because you should.
Yeah.
Because most people don't know the basic stuff. They see water's coming out. They don't think I could shut that off. They don't know. And the whole building could be destroyed.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's right. Like,
little things become big things.
it's true. Yeah, it's true. And they can compound. Yeah.
So what's Interra doing for the holidays?
We've been, the business has been busy still. We're sitting here, what is it, 16th or 17th of December?
Yeah, 17th December.
I figure we got kind of the rest of the week of having most of the market's attention, and then some people will slow down a little bit over the Christmas and New Year's weeks, and that's fine. It will slow down, and
Thank God.
slow down a little bit too. But right now it's getting a couple last deals across the finish line this year. It's a lot of prep for early next year, and kind of bring in listings to market in January. And you always feel better as a broker if you have a pipeline at the beginning of the year, as opposed to feeling like you're starting from zero.
There's nothing like having a few pendings. They're going to close in the new year, and a couple listings you're going to get in the new year. So you got that. It's always about energy, isn't it?
It's true.
Joe?
Yeah, it's true, man.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
And being so genuine and sharing with you. Is there anything else you think we should be hit on before we say goodbye to these people?
No, I appreciate what you're doing too. I appreciate you being a positive, energetic voice of the city and of our business, and I appreciate you using the word legends loosely and letting me join the podcast. No, man, it's fun, and thanks for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. This is Greg Viti from Real Estate Legends signing off. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
All right, man.